The moment the clock struck midnight on January 15, 2026, Jonathan Kuminga didn't just ask for a trade. He triggered a business escape plan that has been months in the making. While the public narrative suggests a young star is simply unhappy with his playing time, the financial receipts tell a story of a calculated agency move to break free from what insiders are calling a $46 million trap. The hidden millions behind Jonathan Kuminga's trade request prove that in the modern NBA, a contract isn't always a commitment to a team. Sometimes it is a bridge to a blowout. For weeks, fans have watched a perfectly healthy 23-year-old wing sit at the end of the Golden State bench, earning over $22 million this year to do absolutely nothing. This isn't just a coach's decision, it is the culmination of a high-stakes standoff involving market manipulation, contract technicalities, and a complete breakdown of trust between a player and an organization. Today, we're following the money and the paper trail to answer three critical questions that the Warriors front office is trying to keep quiet. Why did Kuminga sign a deal he allegedly told confidants he had no choice but to accept? How did he end up being listed as a DNP for over a month despite having zero physical limitations? And what is the shadow strategy his agency is using to force the Warriors to trade him to a specific Western Conference rival? To understand why this is reaching a boiling point now, we have to look at the bizarre events of early January 2026. According to reports from league insiders on January 2nd, a major red flag was raised just 1 hour before a high-profile matchup against Oklahoma City. Head coach Steve Kerr had publicly stated his intention to utilize Kuminga in the rotation that evening to showcase his value to the rest of the league. However, Kuminga reportedly listed himself as unavailable due to sudden back discomfort, despite participating in the full morning shoot-around without issue. Per the Real GM wiretap on January 15th, this was seen by the organization as a business scratch. It was a clear signal that the player was no longer willing to risk his physical health to serve as a trade asset for a team he felt had already abandoned his development. This move sent shockwaves through the locker room, with veteran players reportedly frustrated that a player taking up such a massive portion of the salary cap was refusing to contribute during a critical playoff push. This phantom injury wasn't about pain, it was about power. It was the player's way of saying that if he wasn't part of the long-term plan, he wouldn't be part of the short-term highlights either. The medical staff was reportedly baffled as there were no signs of inflammation or structural issues, leading to an internal investigation that only deepened the rift. This leads us to the most shocking revelation of this entire saga, the trap contract itself. While most fans saw the 2-year, $46.8 million extension Kuminga signed in the offseason as a win for the player, sources close to the situation say it was a strategic compromise that neither side actually wanted. According to league sources cited by ESPN on January 15, 2026, the Warriors front office prioritized creating a tradable salary slot over securing a long-term cornerstone. To explain this in simple terms, the Warriors needed a contract large enough to match salaries for a superstar trade later in the season. By structuring the deal with $22 million in the first year and a team option for the second, the Warriors effectively turned Kuminga into a human trade exception. Kuminga allegedly felt he had no choice but to accept the deal because the alternative was a restricted free agency market that had completely dried up due to the league's new, harsh luxury tax rules. His agency, realizing the Warriors were simply waiting for the mid-January trade eligibility date to move him, began preparing their own counteroffensive. They knew from the moment he signed that dotted line, the clock was ticking. The goal was never for him to finish the season in San Francisco. The goal was to secure the generational wealth first and then force a move to a team that would actually let him play basketball instead of sitting on a bench. The friction in the locker room has been exacerbated by what many see as a clear double standard in the Warriors' rotation. Per comments on Hoops Rumors on January 16th, fans and analysts have pointed out the massive discrepancy between how Steve Kerr treats a young player like Brandon Podziemski versus Jonathan Kuminga. While Podziemski has been given unlimited minutes and a long leash despite shooting slumps, Kuminga was reportedly relegated to the end of the bench after just 1 or 2 defensive mistakes. This perceived favoritism has created a toxic environment where the young core is divided. Insiders suggest that Kuminga's trade request wasn't just about his own role, but a reaction to a culture that he felt rewarded safe play over raw talent. When you have a player who averaged 24 points per game in a playoff series just months prior, and you suddenly stop playing him entirely, you aren't just coaching, you're devaluing an asset. The agency realized that if Kuminga continued to sit on the bench while healthy, his trade value would plummet, giving the Warriors less leverage to send him to a bad destination like a rebuilding team. By making the request loud and public, they took control of the narrative. This devaluation has reached the point where league legends are now weighing in. According to a report by the Sports Rush on January 16, 2026, Paul Pierce publicly questioned why the situation has deteriorated so rapidly, stating that there are too many red flags surrounding Kuminga. Pierce noted that if a team with a desperate need for young talent won't play a $22 million player, something is fundamentally broken behind the scenes. This public criticism is actually part of the shadow strategy being used by rival teams to drive down the Warriors' asking price. By highlighting these red flags and character concerns, other general managers are signaling to Golden State that they won't give up multiple first-round picks for a player who might be a locker room distraction. Per industry insiders, the Los Angeles Lakers and the Sacramento Kings are the primary players in this chess match. They're reportedly lowballing the Warriors, offering expiring contracts and heavily protected picks, knowing that the Warriors are under immense pressure to move Kuminga before the February deadline to avoid a complete locker room meltdown that could ruin their Stephen Curry final championship window. Beyond the trade rumors, we have to look at the agency power play that is happening behind the curtain. In the NBA, a handful of agencies control the movement of top talent. Kuminga's agency are allegedly using a tactic known as the burn down. This involves leaking specific details about the Warriors' internal dissatisfaction to local reporters to ensure the relationship is viewed as unrepairable. Per an August 29, 2025 podcast episode discussing player leverage, this tactic is designed to force a team to take a pennies-on-the-dollar trade just to get the player out the building. We're seeing this play out in real time. On January 18, 2026, reports surfaced that Kuminga had stopped attending optional team dinners and was working out at a separate facility with his own personal trainers. While technically not a violation of his contract, it's a clear message to the front office. I'm already gone. The Warriors are now caught in a trap of their own making. They created a large contract to trade him, but by not playing him, they made that contract look like an overpay or a bench player. We also have to consider the financial implications of the team option in Kuminga's deal. Per the leaked contract details on January 15, 2026, the second year of his contract, worth over $24 million, is entirely at the discretion of the team. If Kuminga is traded to a team that doesn't believe in his long-term potential, they could simply decline the option, making him a free agent in the summer of 2027. This is the ultimate prove-it scenario. Kuminga's agency is betting that a team like the Lakers will trade for him, pick up that option, and then sign him to a massive 5-year extension. It's a high-risk, high-reward gamble. If he lands in the wrong spot and fails to produce, he could go from a $46 million man to a minimum salary player in less than 24 months. This level of financial volatility is why the trade request was so urgent. Every day he spent on the Warriors' bench was a day his future earnings were being drained. The internal data from the Warriors' front office also tells a story of analytical friction. According to unverified insiders, the team's advanced metrics suggested that the lineup with Kuminga and Draymond Green on the floor together had a net rating that was significantly lower than the league average. While Kuminga is a spectacular individual scorer, the Warriors' system relies on split-second decision-making and ball movement, areas where Kuminga had recordedly struggled to adapt. Per a report on January 10, 2026, the coaching staff tried to move Kuminga to a small ball center role, which he allegedly refused, citing a desire to play on the perimeter. This disagreement about positional fit was the final straw. It wasn't just that he wasn't playing, it was that the team wanted him to be a player he had no interest in being. This is a classic industry mistake, drafting a player for their talent, but expecting them to change their entire identity to fit a pre-existing system. The impact of this drama on Kuminga's career cannot be understated. By requesting a trade on the very first day of eligibility, he has officially entered the mercenary phase of his career.
While this move might get him the playing time he craves in a different jersey, it also labels him as a player who is willing to use business scratches and trade demands to get his way. According to industry analysts, this is the new reality of the NBA. The future face of the franchise label is often just a marketing tool used by teams to keep a player's trade value high until the front office finds a better deal. Kuminga saw the game for what it was and decided to play it just as ruthlessly as the executives do. He realized that the Warriors weren't invested in his growth, they were invested in his cap hit. By demanding out, he is attempting to reclaim his status as a basketball player rather than a line item on a spreadsheet. In summary, Jonathan Kuminga's trade request is a masterclass in how agencies and teams manipulate the financial landscape of the NBA. We've seen how a $46 million contract can be used as a cage, how back discomfort can be used as a business tool, and how the public narrative is often just a smokescreen for a much uglier reality. The Warriors wanted a trade chip. Kuminga wanted a career, and both sides are now stuck in a standoff that is devaluing everyone involved. The business of basketball is moving toward a model where every contract is a transaction and every player is an asset to be flipped. If the Warriors can't find a deal that satisfies their need for positive value, they risk losing him for nothing, or worse, letting a toxic situation derail their entire season. The broader lesson here for any athlete or sports industry professional is that transparency is rare and leverage is everything. Kuminga's situation highlights the importance of understanding the fine print in agency contracts and the real motivations behind team-friendly deals. As we head toward the trade deadline, every tweet from an insider and every unnamed source quote is a piece of a larger puzzle. This is a high-stakes game of chicken where the only loser so far is the fan base watching a high-flying talent waste away on the sidelines. Whether he lands in Los Angeles, Sacramento, or stays stuck in limbo until the summer, the message is clear. The loyalty era is officially dead, and the era of the contract trap has begun. If you want to see how these same tactics are being used by the league's biggest superstars to force their way to championship contenders, you need to understand the full scope of the industry. To get the real story behind the get-em-out trades and the secret negotiations that happen before the deadline, you need to dive into our Court Vision Root playlist. It's the only way to see the moves before they hit the headlines and understand why the scoreboard is only half the story.